Once we're signed in, what we see in front of us is these areas here. It gives us a little welcome. It says create your first workflow. We can either start from scratch or try an AI workflow. Let's click start from scratch. There you go. We're now into the canvas. Let's quickly go over what is involved in the canvas, what it has in front of us. First thing you can see here is to add your first step. Now, what we have on the canvas is the ability to create our workflow. Our workflow will go from left to right along here. The workflow is the set of steps that will take us from our beginning point, our trigger, to our goal. This allows us to add our first step. But before we get into that, I'm quickly going to go over what's involved in the canvas, what we see here, how we would use it. Along the top, we have, it says my workflow, which is the name of the workflow. We can give it a name in here, such as passion sports workflow. And then carrying on along the top, we can publish. It's automatically saved. Here, what we've got is the history. If we click on that, as we make changes to our workflow, we can see the version history. That allows us to roll back or go forward. Here we are again. And then in this drop down, we can duplicate the workflow, download, share, change owner, rename, import from a URL, import from a file. And then we can access our settings for the workflow here as well. Those are things we can go over at a later date. Over here, we've got the ability to open the nodes panel. That's the same as if we go here and create our first step, it opens the node panel. If we go here, we also open the node panel. It does the same thing. Now, the set of components, pieces, apps that we string together to create whatever we want to create in our workflow are called nodes. When we click here, that's why it gives us a list of nodes, but it gives us some headings to help us to find those nodes. The first thing we do is trigger our workflow. That's why it's saying what triggers this workflow. A trigger is a step that starts your workflow. Now, you can either go by these menu items. For example, if you want to trigger your workflow, you start off whenever somebody sends you a chat message, you want to do something, then you would click on chat message. If you want it to be whenever someone types some information into a form, then you would choose on form submission, etc. If you want to click a button, trigger it yourself, you would choose trigger manually. These are the list of all the different triggers. Now, once you do choose a trigger, you can do other things, perform other events. They can be found after you've chosen your trigger. So let's say we trigger manually. Then we click this plus button. We would choose what we want to do next. It then groups them into what happens next. It groups them into nodes that are all related by certain themes. AI nodes, action in apps. That means do something in an app or service like Google Sheets, Telegram, or Notion. A data transformation, a flow, which means to branch, merge, or loop the flow. If you've got something that you've already built, a workflow, you might want to loop it a certain amount of times, or you might want to at a certain point go off and do other things. You would choose this flow here. It gives you a number of groupings, but what I like to do, once I know what I want to do, you can search for it here, search nodes. Let's say I want to send an email via Outlook. I will type in Outlook. Then within Outlook, I'll be able to choose a number of different actions. If I know I wanted to send an email by Gmail, I will type in Gmail. So you can find whatever you want, whichever node you want to connect to, you can find simply by search as well. We'll go a little bit deeper into the exact ones we'll be using within this training. That's what the plus does. It opens nodes, the nodes panel where you can choose a node. The search allows you to search. There you go. You can still find your nodes this way as well and search for other things too. This is notes. Sometimes you want some information about your workflow. You would click here, drag your note to wherever you want, and then you can add some notes about it, and more about that possibly at a later date. And this actually controls the side menu. You click that, it opens up a little bit there, the side menu, and that closes the side menu based on what you want to do. If you click here, this is AI. Wherever you see this symbol, it represents AI. And this is what you can use to ask questions. For example, if I have a problem in my workflow and I don't know how to fix it, I'll ask here. If I just want to know how to get started, I could ask it how to build a workflow that sends an email. There you go. It's had a think. It's put a few nodes on the canvas. And here it says how to set up. In the workflow configuration node, replace the placeholders with your email address. Click execute workflow. Let me know if you'd like to adjust anything. It's given us the first inroads into creating a workflow that will send an email. Of course, it doesn't know specifically what email we want to send. We would need to fill in the blanks. But very quickly, it's not only told us how to set up and how to do it, but it's actually done it for us. So it's kind of a done for you. If you are ever in doubt about anything or you want to get started really quickly, you can click the AI button. And that's pretty much it. I'll close out the menu here. On the left-hand side, again, we can expand. We've got overview, which is, if I save this quickly, an overview of all of the different workflows we've created. Personal workflows that are inside of our personal space. We can create other projects. This is our personal project space, but we could create other projects as well and create other workflows. Therefore, it's divided them into personal, and then we'll be able to create more. It also allows you to, within here, create a new workflow here. If I was to hit that, it would create yet another workflow within my personal space. If we go back inside the workflow now, on the left-hand side, we've also got an admin panel where we can configure various things, which we can come to at a later date. We've got the templates, which are essentially done for you ways to get started really quickly building workflows. For example, we've got track Google Trends, search data locally with Bright Data, MCP, and AI analysis. We've got generating search engine optimization, optimized product descriptions for Shopify, and ready-made, done-for-you templates in here. We've also got insights, which is various stats, which will make a lot more sense once you start doing your workflow, day-to-day stats about your workflows. You can access help here, even though a lot of it is accessible through the AI option that I showed you. You can access documentation directly here. And if there are specific things you want to find, they're in this menu, you can go straight here. And then the rest are settings for each of the different areas: personal, users, project roles, environments, etc. Things that we can come to at a later date. Always good to get started really simply to begin with, but at least you know your environment. If we go back up and then we go into the passion sports workflow, the main things you want to know is it's usually auto-saved. And what you want to do is you can execute a workflow in entirety by clicking this button. But what we want to do is if we double click on here, execute a step. Each one of these nodes counts as a step. And if I want to run simply this step, I can double click, go in and click execute step. And the beauty of that is the way the workflow works is each node takes information from the previous node. What we want to do is run this step, make sure it works, and we will see the output from this step. You can see here, this is an output panel, and we will see what output comes out of this step. And therefore we know what input will come into this step. If we double click here, we can see there's an input side and an output side. And what will happen is once we run this node, we will see the output. We can check what's coming in, and that tells us what we can do before we go on to the next step. And all this will become much clearer. But if we want to run the whole workflow, then we can click execute workflow. Down here, we've got the ability to zoom in and zoom out. If you click this, it will zoom to fit. It makes sure if you've got a huge workflow, everything will fit in your canvas. And here we can do some tidy up. If there are things that we don't need or things that aren't connected and we want to tidy them up, this will help us to do that. We've also got logs down here, which tells us if we've had errors and warnings along the way, it will list them down here, and it helps us to keep track of any issues, warnings, or things like that here. That's your canvas, and what we need to remember the aim of the game is to build a workflow to go from some trigger to some end product or endpoint, and then that way we can automate anything that we want to do. This is before we even involve AI agents. We can automate our workflows within our organization and help us to become more productive and far more efficient. Now, the next step is to start creating our first workflow, and we'll be doing that in the upcoming lessons.